Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. This is the December 2nd reorganization meeting of the Pine-Richland School Board. First, we'll begin with the pledge. If you'd all stand and join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is recognition of visitors. Do we have any visitors who would like to address the board? Okay, with that, thank you. Before we move on to item 103, Dr. Miller has some words to say.
Thank you, Barb. So we've talked about this at different points, and I wanted to just take a moment to repeat it tonight. It is impossible to find high-performing organizations or organizations that strive for continuous improvement that do not have strong leadership and governance. You know, we have thankfully now three members of the community, but we have across Pennsylvania, school boards are reorganizing this week, and there is much turnover in school board members, just like there is much turnover in senior leadership across districts. We have been fortunate enough over time together to build the kind of stability, cohesion, clarity of mission, of focus, of strategy that is exceptional. That is something that, as the senior leadership team, we do not take for granted. We appreciate that you are here and your families are not, that you spend time reading that people don't see. The chair of a board member is not understood in the community. It is a different view when you sit back here and when you see the organization through the eyes of governance. And so on behalf of the entire district, just want to say thank you, how much we appreciate the opportunity to lead and work hard with you to pursue our mission for every student. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. So at this time, I'll ask the newly elected board members to come in front of the tables here, and Mr. Don Palmer will do the swearing in.
It's my honor to administer the oath of office to each one of you. And I note for the record, everybody who's been administered the oath for a 4-year term, but you had a 2-year term and a 4-year term. This is for the 4-year term. Okay, so if you would raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm.
Do solemnly swear or affirm.
That I will support, obey, and defend.
That I will support, obey, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
And the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
And that I will discharge the duties of my office.
And that I will discharge the duties of my office
With fidelity.
with fidelity.
Great thing to do in the oath is I get to be the first to congratulate.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Okay, I'll take roll call at this time. Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Ms. Misbach? Here. Mr. Kashani?
Here.
Dr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. DiTullio, who is calling in by phone. Mr. DiTullio?
You're on mute, Greg.
Dr. Meyer?
Here.
Mr. Moy?
Here.
Dr. Mihalik?
Here.
I'll give Mr. DiTullio another shot.
Barb, can you hear me?
I can now. You're here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I just called your roll call name.
Okay, yeah, I was calling saying that I was here.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next Item 2.01 is the election of a temporary chairperson. I now call for nominations for a temporary chairperson. We do not need a second to be nominated. Any nominations?
Nominate Mark Kashani, because he loves the gavel.
I do like the gavel.
They do have to be a holdover member. It has to be a holdover member, so it would have to be Mrs. Mizbach,
That's what he does.
Yeah, so how about?
Mr. Moy.
Mr. Moore, and I nominate him.
Okay.
Nominate Mr. Kashani.
He has to be a holder.
Oh, it has to be me.
Yeah.
I get it.
Any other nominations? All right, with that, Mr. Moy, you are the temporary chairperson, and I have a little bit of a script here that you can follow, but the main thing is you do get the gavel.
Super excited.
It's very cool, man.
It's gotta use it at least once.
You definitely gotta use it.
Yeah, and just follow along there.
Sure.
Item 2.02, election of board president. I now call for nominations for school board president.
I nominate Peter Lyons.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations?
Any other nominations? Thank you. Okay,
Seeing none, if there are no objections, I declare the nominations closed. By unanimous consent, Peter Lyons has been elected president of the Pine-Richland School Board for a term of 1 year. Congratulations, Peter. Please give. Yeah. I did it once.
There you go. How'd it feel, Matt?
A little confusing.
First of all, thank you. Thank you very much. Item 2.03 is we'll accept nominations for the office of board vice president at this point.
I nominate Christine Mizbach.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing how there are none, nominations are closed, and we'll declare Christine Mizbach vice president of the board by unanimous consent. Congratulations, Christine.
Thank you.
Item 2.04 is a motion to establish the public board meeting dates as attached in public content. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.05 is a motion to designate the Post-Gazette as the district's newspaper of record.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.06 will be a motion to appoint a legislative representative to PSBA. I'll entertain nominations or indications of interest. Dr. Meyer, you've handled this office with aplomb.
So I'll make the motion.
Mhm. Are there any other nominations interested in our PSBA representative role? Seeing how there are none, we'll declare Dr. Meyer our PSBA representative by unanimous consent. Thank you for your service. Item 2.07 is a motion to appoint one member to a 1-year term and a second member to a 2-year term as our A.W. Beatty representatives. And I believe that's because, Ms. Mizbach, your term is expiring,
Correct.
and Ms. Goebel's term had 1 year remaining on it, right? So they are staggered normally, so we'll try to achieve some stagger here. I guess I'll ask first, Christine, are you?
So I'd be happy to continue, and I'd be happy to take the 2-year.
Fantastic.
Unless there's somebody else that wants the 2-year, or others that want the position.
And you guys meet approximately once a month, twice a month?
Once a month.
Once a month.
About. There's a 2 months out of the year that we don't meet, sometime in the middle of the summer, and then usually like in October that we do not meet. And then we also, something that we started here at Pine-Richland is the Beatty Awareness Committee with Dr. Pasquinelli and other members from the staff. And we meet once a quarter, but it's not a requirement, but it's just something that we did start, so.
The meetings are Thursday night, right?
Correct. Usually at 6 o'clock, get there for dinner. And then the students actually cook the dinner. It's there as a buffet, and then we start the meeting at 6:30. Sometimes there are committee meetings, committees that you can be on prior, but not always. And they go pretty quickly. Half an hour to an hour at the most. I don't think it's ever run more than that before.
I'd be interested, but I teach on Thursday night.
Oh. Yeah. Mhm.
I'm going to move that we move Christine to a 2-year seat,
Mhm.
and we'll leave the 1-year seat vacant for the time being. All right, so we'll table that second seat to our next meeting, Ms. Williams. So if there are no objections, we'll declare Christine our 2-year A.W. Beatty representative. Thank you, Christine.
You're welcome.
For your commitment.
Thank you.
Item 2.08 is the appointment of representative to Pine Township Parks and Recreation Board. I'll speak for Mr. Tulio. I hope he can hear my voice. But Greg had indicated an interest in continuing to serve there. We should not appoint him tonight, but we can keep the seat open. But I'm sure if someone else would like to run as well, we can defer that to a vote. If anyone has any other interest right now? Seeing how there's none, I'll move that we table this motion to the next meeting. Can I have a second?
Second.
We're all in agreement?
Sorry.
Okay, so we'll table this one then. Well, we sort of declared it by consent, so, yeah. I mean, essentially we did, I think I would say, right? Item 2.09 is an appointment of representative for the Pine-Richland Opportunities Fund. Ms. Misbeck has served this faithfully for the past 2 years.
I'd be happy to continue unless there's someone else that would like to attend the board meetings. Those board meetings are on, now they've put them on to, they kind of vary in the week, but most of them coming forward in the new year in 2020 are on a Monday night, and there's a few that no one can make because it would be conflicting with a board meeting here, so.
Second.
Sounds like you're
Congratulations.
Okay, sure.
Congratulations, we'll declare that by unanimous consent.
Mhm.
Christine, thank you so much.
Do you mind if I make a quick comment?
Please.
We have so many areas of integration happening now that were not possible before. So for example, having Chris continue to serve with Prof is huge. The same thing with A.W. Beatty. We just have so many things happening, and the level of knowledge and awareness is increasing so much, it just allows us to keep continuity. So really, really helpful, so thank you.
Item 2.10 is the appointment of Food Service Advisory and Wellness Committee Representative, a role that I fulfilled with whatever results for the past year or two, I think now. I am also happy to continue in that role, but if there's any interest. Right. By unanimous consent, will appoint me to continue in that role. Item 2.11 is the appointment of a delegate to Allegheny North Tax Collection Committee. Mr. Kashani was the prior alternate, which I believe has been our history as long as this role has existed in this form for our treasurer to fill that role. I will make a motion to Mark Kashani, if I could have a second. Are there any other nominations? Seeing how there's none, we'll declare Mark Kashani to this role as the alternate voting representative. Before we go to item 2.12, I'll say a couple words about this and why these roles work, and why at least I'm pretty comfortable with Christine being the same role. And it's really twofold, I think. It's a sign of trust, that we understand the role that this person's fulfilling, and it's a sign of communication, that there's constant updates and feedback back. So there's not something going on at Beatty that we need to know about that we don't know about. And there's not something going on at Parks and Rec that Greg isn't giving us updates. So that trust, which I think stems from communication, updates, and openness, is what allows us to then develop deeper on those roles, because there's not a sense, right, that, oh, I need to get in there because I don't know what X is doing. And so I would sort of tell everybody, keep doing that work, keep doing, building those connections, and keep communicating back to the board, because that's really what makes it work so well. And thank you all for your service in those roles. With that, we can move to item 2.12, which is board committees and chairs. Typically, at this time in our reorganization, we'll talk a little bit about it, and the board leadership will solicit interest in the various committees from the membership, and we'll come back at our next meeting in a week or two and announce the committee formation. And this year I wanted to have a bit of a discussion around that concept, which really stemmed from the one-on-one meetings that I had with each of you and with board leadership and with Dr. Miller this fall. And the questions that were asked in those meetings were, why do we organize the way that we do? And how does that help us achieve our goals and achieve the mission of the district? One of the things that came out of that very clearly is that, we've taken some very intentional steps to ensure that our committees are not silos of specific power or control or information that's not more broadly accessible. And we see that in how each of us makes an effort to attend the many committee meetings that we may have, regardless of the topic area. That's a real positive. In fact, in conversations I know we had at Hershey, Christine and I were at a loss to name the committees we were on, other than leadership. And that's not a negative, right? I don't think it is. I think that's because we know that we're going to try to come to every committee meeting, schedule permitting, and we take an interest in all of that. So by default, the committee meetings, especially when we take that horseshoe format, we intentionally have a less formal structure. So there's definitely more dialogue with senior leadership or whatever area of the administration or central office has an expertise in that topic. They've become more workshop meetings and very productive and fantastic as a result. So that's a good thing. We have fewer meetings in general. We have fewer board meetings, and we have fewer nights with meetings, in part because of this open committee concept. So I actually recorded these, and I just hand counted from board docs. So it's not if there are errors here, and they're entirely my own. But I think the count is still reasonably accurate enough to show the trend, which is that we have fewer meetings overall, but we have fewer nights with meetings. Now, some of that is due to, let me give you an example. If you're welcome to go back to sort of 2008, you might have a 6 o'clock Buildings and Grounds meeting, 6:30 Finance, and 7 o'clock Student Services, which was partly because it just was hard. There wasn't a level of collaboration to say, here's the topic area, call it what you will, it's one meeting. So the meeting count was partly inflated because of that. I think that's an indicator of us moving in a very positive direction. So as much as the committees, we've sort of taken that concept and expanded it, I think, there is still a special role for, I think, the head of each committee. And many of you have sort of played that role in your respective regard. Mark in finance, building a closer relationship with Dana, following the budget and preparing for the budget meetings ahead of time. Dr. Meyer working with Dr. Silva and Dr. Pasquinelli as we've sort of moved into implementation of the strategic plan, taking those 3-month, 6-month, 12-month outlooks so we see what's coming down and giving guidance and feedback, providing a detailed sort of agenda and outlook so that you can reflect that back to the board, and building a closer relationship and some expertise. Again, this works because it all does come back into this room and all gets communicated back either through updates or in updates in the meeting. So what I wanted to propose was that we take our committee structure and maybe alter it a little bit. And it would entail, and I think we're okay within policy doing this, since our committee policy talks about we may appoint committees. Board leadership may appoint committees. So what I'm suggesting is that board leadership decide to not appoint committees per se, but that we retain committee heads. We can call them liaisons, since it is sort of extra policy. I'm not too hung up on the name, but you know, a coordinator or liaison from the board for the same topic areas. I don't see a need to change that. Really, there'd be no change. We might change what we call a meeting. Sometimes it's helpful to know this is finance and buildings and grounds. Just the headline tells me a lot about what we're going to talk about. We all know what that meeting is. When it's academic achievement, it's academic achievement. We don't need to call it anything else. The expectation is the same in terms of board attendance, that we all make an effort to attend those meetings as much as possible. Just want to throw that out there for discussion.
Yeah, I agree. You know, we talked about instead of it being a committee, that it's the team because of everyone working together, and whether that person would be called a liaison or it still could be a chair, because it's the person that is running the meeting. It's not a matter of being the team lead or the expert in the content area. It's just the chair. So we could always retain that title. It would be more traditional, and if that's more desired, it's really, I say, semantics. So, but I like the idea of it being, you know, the team, and that everyone comes, and as I said, I didn't know, honestly, don't remember what I'm on. So
No, you can't look at your card right now, so.
Right.
Yes, you're tempted.
Do you mind if I add a comment?
Please.
Yeah, I would also add, the regular meetings used to be at 7:30. We shifted that to 7 o'clock. And the hour that we have now, I think, is more focused. So we've seen attendance also increase because, you know, you're here for 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and then we're right into the meeting. So again, I agree with all the comments earlier. Even with the calendar that was already approved, we are doing so many other things on off nights, whether those are workshops with board and senior leadership or strategic planning meetings or academic achievement and growth. We are so much more focused on the meat, the content, that even with less time or less meetings, the quality of what we're doing, I think, has increased. So my 2 cents.
Yeah.
You know, I always like to tell people, think about running the board, how many hours does it take? I said, well, it varies, but if it takes you only 3 hours a week or 30 hours a week, either way, you're doing it wrong. So somewhere in between is the happy medium, and I think we've hit that. So the level of conversation that we have, you know, so circumscribed is good. One caveat is, I do want to be deliberate about continuing to monitor attendance over this year, comparisons to the last 2 years, and just to make sure. I mean, there are topic areas that may not draw as much. So if we have an issue that we need to appoint, to be deliberate that we need 4 people to pay attention to this issue as uninteresting or outside of the norm or, you know, not sexy as it is.
Right.
We need to make sure we have that focus.
So I think most of it, I mean, to me, has been interesting, but I think that integrating the meetings, the various topics that, you know, nothing really works in isolation. And so student services, academic achievement, you know, yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Mark puts an "and" finance after every meeting in his mind anyway.
That's true.
Just for the-
That's true. Yeah.
Greg, if you have any input, you're welcome to give it if you can hear us or if you can talk.
Sorry, I was on mute. I don't want to add anything to the discussion right now because I'm having a bit of a difficult time hearing. I want to go back and kind of mull over everything, but I'm just having a difficult time kind of getting the entire context.
Okay, understood. With this direction, though, I will send out an email soliciting interest in the various topic areas. Although, as I said before, I think it's worked well where we're at, in part because of the level of trust and the levels of communication. That when things go on in a meeting, I'll pick on you again, Dr. Meyer, Dr. Silva, and Dr. Pasquinelli, we know what happened at that meeting. We see that direction very clearly, and that communication keeps it working well. So that's what I think allows us to build those deeper relationships. So.
Yep, I'll just, I can support this. I like the idea. I think it works well as long as we continue to get the type of attendance and participation we've been getting. If that changes, though, it could cause a bit of a problem. Or it could also be an issue that we really have to discuss. I remember there being some issues like in student services once upon a time that where we discussed potentially a new policy or a change to a policy, and then out of that committee we had to educate and inform the full board on that issue. We really haven't had anything like that I can recall, but if we have to roll up our sleeves at the committee level, this could we need like an ownership of that issue, which is what the committees gave us. So I can support it, but just with a sensitivity around. We still need that ownership. The quarterback of the committee can still rally, but then if we need a smaller body to really get in the weeds, we don't really have that. So who's going to own that?
Or it could be that it's identified at that time if it's like a project or it's some special topic that needs more detailed work on, where then you would identify a committee.
Identify a subset who's really passionate, who
Right.
can get in the weeds, and then.
I'd say this because I'm safely certain it won't happen. If we suddenly had 10,000 families move to the district and needed to build a building, we would probably need a separate committee, and our policies would allow that. So I don't anticipate that, but I think the takeaway for me is keep coming to committee meetings for every board member as much as possible. That's why this works, and it certainly works better. And actually, the net result is probably less time invested in meeting time, as we can see from that chart, than it would be otherwise.
Yeah, the word I was thinking about is engagement. So in addition to being there, it's the engagement before, during, and after that is the biggest difference. Board members are coming to meetings having reviewed, read, understood key points, so that when we do get together, it's far less of a presentation of information than it is a discussion of key points or next steps. That's been a huge shift in a positive direction. So, agreed, in addition to being present, that's critical. It's, wanting to maintain engagement and ownership across those various topics. So, again, my 2 cents.
Yeah. I think with our current structure of meetings, that this could work well, but my concern would be if we looking back at the 2008-9 timeframe when there were lots more meetings, committees are used to prevent board members from having to be in attendance at all meetings, to prevent board burnout or board overwork, so you have smaller subsets tackling problems. So as long as we're at this lower end of the range of meetings per year, I think it's okay, but if it starts creeping back to that higher end, that could create a lot of scheduling problems for a lot of us and difficulty attending all of those meetings. So I think we're okay now, but as long as we don't creep up to that higher level, we should be good.
We'll continue to track that as well. Yeah.
I also think knowing the attendance, even at board meetings as well, when we know, especially in the summertime, when we're down to where we've got a few people on vacation, we need to have a quorum. It's like we have each other's backs. If it's like, I'll make sure that I'm going to be there at that meeting, even calling in, whatever I have to do. So being aware of, there's a need for, make sure that don't last minute say I can't come unless it's truly an emergency. So.
Yep. So let's do it with an asterisk.
We need
All
to
right.
monitor the attendance and
Yeah.
the results.
Yep.
And I want a graph like this every year, Peter.
It's that same graphic.
What's the area under the curve?
There you go.
You want to integrate the total time we're stuck in meetings over the
Only,
There you go.
it's getting longer by the minute, actually.
By
but-
meeting.
All right, item, good? Item 3.01 is a motion to declare the board vacancy. If I could have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? We've declared the vacancy. This is obviously to fill the 2-year seat with Dr. Mihalik having just sworn in for the 4-year seat in 1-2, which brings us to item 3.02, which is an information item that the board has declared a special meeting to be scheduled for December 17th at 6 p.m. for purposes of interviewing candidates and appointing a new board member for Region 3. Senior leadership and board and admin have had some discussions about the interview process, and so thus far it's as we've done in the past, and we did for Dr. Mihalik just some 2 years ago. We were aware of this vacancy, so the timeline's a little bit shortened this year, so we can actually hopefully fill this seat before Christmas. Ms. Hathorn, we have a email queued up to the community, I assume, declaring the vacancy and the date.
Barb and I will make sure you have one more look at it tomorrow morning, or we can send it tonight.
Tomorrow morning's fine. And we've revised the application with Owen Kenny's help to make it sort of a little more HR-like in a job application. We've also tweaked the process a little bit where we're going to have time to spend one-on-one with each candidate. We're asking the other candidates to voluntarily yield the public part of the meeting so that we can do that. But overall, it's an interview process where we'll have both one-on-one with the board as well as panel time as we have in the past. Because there will be hopefully 8 of us here, the winning candidate will require 5 votes at that time if we have 8 here. Are there any discussions about the process or considerations? That's it then. Item 3.03 is an information item for our voting at the next meeting, which is the motion to approve the 2020-2021 academic calendar as attached. This is identical to the one we had, right?
Correct.
That's pretty much it. Item 4.01, recognition of visitors. If anyone would like to address the board, they may. Item 4.02, adjournment. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
See you guys.
See you, Greg.
Bye,
Good night,
Greg.
Greg.